All right. Hello. Welcome to Channel of Curiosity. This is
Aw.
my podcast, and I get to be here with Travis today. If you've never met Travis before, he's a 1-3 splenic projector and just a lot of fun. So I really appreciate you being here with me, Travis.
Hey, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity and excited to chat some more.
Yes, absolutely. And it was so much fun when you were on Human Design Hot Topics with me and
Mhm.
Janelle. So so I love the hot topics because it gets to be like Janelle cracks me up and there's all this.
Mm.
Like, it's just so much fun. And then over here on Channel Curiosity, my goal is really to just kind of dig into some specifics of what it's like living within certain aspects of design, because
Mm.
I feel like sharing those stories is so important, especially for someone brand new. If I meet someone new who's a splenic projector with like the channel of surrender, like you would say, hey, go listen to Travis,
Mm.
go hear his experience. And I just think I think it's really helpful. So thank you for being willing to share.
Totally. Yeah, it's so cool to be in a position to do that. Because when I started, I did the same thing. I'm like, where's my channel? Who's got this? And yeah, listening to, I mean, as a 1-3 too, we want to hear other people's experiences, um, and where they came from, the mistakes they made, and continue to make.
Yes, all the information. I wanna know all the, like, book stuff
Mm.
and all of the messy stuff
Yeah.
and conglomerate it in. So, okay, tell me again how long you've been in your experiment.
I think it's coming up on 4 years now.
Okay,
Yeah, close to
okay,
4 years. Yeah.
yeah. So we're real close. I'll be 4 years in December.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Nice.
doesn't it seem like 20?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
also like 6 months.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, it's one of those where time makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like, I forget what life was like before human design,
Mm.
and now having this way of navigating life, like, it just makes so much sense. It helps me so much.
Yeah, I tell people I'm 3.5. I'm like,
Same.
I feel like I am a baby and I'm like starting my life for yeah, for the last 3.5 years.
Yes, yes, and there's just so much unlearning
Mm.
and allowing. I think, like, tell us about what's been going on for you, like, how has this really changed your life?
Yeah, so prior to finding human design, I hated everyone. I hated everything. I was very depressed. I was angry. I put on a good facade. I smiled a lot. I kind of think that's an open solar plexus thing where
Mhm.
we could be feeling very dark things or very, bad emotions. For me, it was depression. But then on the outside, I would just smile all the time because it was kind of my way of like, don't ask me what's going on. I'm not going to tell you. I don't want to go there. Like I'm just going to be the happy guy on the outside.
Mhm.
And I had times of happiness, but most of it was very dark, and it was really just me feeling like I didn't belong, which is so common for projectors. Of like, we're very different. I don't think I can keep up with the pace of society. Something's wrong here. Like something isn't working. Like no one's happy. There's lots of frustration. There's just all these questions that I knew from a very early age. I just had this feeling like, oof, people are expecting things from me, and I'm not going to be able to deliver on them. Uh,
Mm.
and so I felt like it was kind of like being set up for failure.
Mhm.
Uh, and so for most of my life, it was trying to come to terms with how can I succeed with these rules that were given to me. And that shit doesn't work.
No.
Does not work.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's interesting that you've had that sense, like, forever. Whenever I think back as a little kid, I just remember trying to fit in so much. Like, I would observe, this is what everybody's doing, this is what you're supposed to do, so I'm gonna do what I'm supposed to do, and would try to mold myself into that. I don't remember ever questioning it or saying, "I can't do this." Like, I would
Mm.
just kinda keep trying. to do this.
Mm.
And it was very tiring.
Yeah, my my mom sent me a poem I wrote when I was in like early grade school, and we had to compare ourselves to an animal, and I compared myself to a turtle.
Oh,
And it was like I like to go slow, I like to be lazy and relax. I'm like a, like a late bloomer. Like it was so I want to post that because it it was me like really feeling myself. And I think at that point I was probably trying to come to terms with like, why do I feel this way? I was
mhm.
very, I'm still very sarcastic, but I have kind of a dark sense of humor. And I think that's kind of when it started of like, okay, I better make fun of myself for feeling like this, but I know that this is how I feel, at such an early age. It was kind of cool to see.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Glad your mom had that.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
I asked my mom once because I was trying to like go back to kid stuff. I'm like, what do you remember me liking? And she's like, I just remember you liking boys. Like, that's it, mom. That's all you got. Thanks.
Mhm.
Oh, so one thing that I'm really curious about with you is like we're both 1-3s.
Mhm.
And so navigating life as a 1-3, I remember last time we talked, you made this comment about how we're the most self-centered profile,
Mhm.
essentially. And it was like I knew that, but it hit me different when you said that. So I've just been really sitting with that and observing that. And it does make so much sense. It's
Mhm.
like I just want to study things and learn things and then kind of pop up and share what I know and then go back to learning and just kind of have that cycle. But it's been interesting in business too. I'm like, wait, how do I do business like this? But it's just an interesting journey. And it seems like things have been really successful for you lately. So how do you navigate being a 1-3? What does that mean to you?
You gotta fucking take the leap at some point and do something that you have no idea how it's gonna turn out. Um, I say yes to lots of invitations that come my way that feel aligned, that I feel uh, that inferiority complex, or like I don't feel ready. I don't feel like I'm able to do it. But it's all I notice is just my mind, and my
Mhm.
body is saying yes and getting excited. So I think for me, it's just like how much can I get rid of any perfectionism? How much can I just say like yes to an opportunity? Even if it scares me, and how much can I embrace the messiness and doing it differently and not having it follow any guideline or um, expectation or whatever. So I think it can be hard with clients and with friends because I wouldn't say it's like necessarily it's more like self-absorbed versus self-centered. Like I don't think I'm self-centered, but I feel like I'm very self-absorbed in the fact that like sometimes it's like I forget that there's other people around, or I'm not always thinking about other people, the way a transpersonal profile would.
Mhm.
So for me, it can get kind of sticky of like, oh, like, this person's feeling not like neglected, or like, oh, am I ignoring them? Am I not, why am I not reaching out? Like, I think other people can have can have questions about the nature or the maybe make up like, ooh, what is the, what's the intention behind the breaking of the bond, where I'm just like, oh, I'm in my study mode now, or I'm messing something up and needing to clean it up, or needing to fix it up. So I think being a 1-3 is just, yeah, it's a continue. We'll be students forever. We'll
Oh yeah.
never stop learning. We'll never stop poking at the weak spots. We're really kind of meant to find those weak points and expose them. Um, Another thing I think that's been really successful, and I don't know how much of this is being a 1-3, but is how vulnerable and authentic I can be with sharing my pain. Um, I think really what set me off on this journey was an Instagram post where I just exposed like I've been depressed for 20 years. Um,
Mm.
and everybody was like shocked to hear it, but it was so obvious to me. I didn't know people would be shocked to hear that truth. So now I really think like the more vulnerable I can be, the more I can let people in on like authentically what's happening, the good and the bad, the more resonance and the more aligned people come into my life and invite me into things that are fun for me.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay, that answers one question that I was curious about because, like you were saying that sometimes you forget people are around, and I do that too. It's like
Mm.
I forget, oh, maybe I should share
Oops.
what I've been learning
Mm.
or something that's going on. And so I was wondering if there was some shift for you from going like to realizing, oh, it's time to share. Like
Mm.
what am I trying to say? The shift to bring in those invitations that you were talking about. And it sounds like that was it, like when you just pop up and share the vulnerabilities, share what you know, share what you're learning, and just simply do that. That's when the invitations come in for you. Is that right?
I had someone recently tell me I need to talk more on my Instagram. I'm the 4426, and
Mhm.
like people really resonate when they see my face speaking. It's so obvious to me in my engagement online. And most of the time, I don't do it because I'm insecure, because
Oh,
of the way I look or because of I don't like this. And I think 1 3s because we're meant to make mistakes. And some of my conditioning growing up, which is very much like focus on your appearance and you can't look like nothing can look out of place. But I think we can turn into perfectionists.
oh
Like,
yeah.
oh, I'm here to make mistakes. I never want to make a mistake ever. And so a lot of 1 3s I meet, there are these perfectionists. I'm like, whoa, this is actually like the most limiting thing for my growth and for attracting invitations is for me as a third line, not wanting to go get messy, not wanting to show people, when I wake up in the morning, what you look like when I don't have my lights set up, which
Yeah.
I have fun and everyone likes to look good and stuff, but yeah, it's been I've really noticed. It's felt really aligned and it's felt really liberating to just like hop on and talk about something.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad that you do. There is definitely a frequency there. I've had that perfectionist thing very much my entire childhood,
Mm,
wanting to be perfect, scared to make any kind of mistake.
mm,
And knowing I'm a 3 line has really helped me to just kind of embrace that. And even
mm,
showing up on video, like you were saying, like I just kind of forced myself, like,
mm.
you know what? I haven't done my makeup and my hair's in some weird ponytail, but we're just gonna talk. And I think TikTok helped with that actually, because so many
Mm,
people just show up on TikTok.
mm.
It's not as much of a thing like on Instagram. I feel like I gotta be prettier,
Interesting. That's funny.
but it's helped a lot. Like nobody's said, "Oh my gosh, you look terrible." They said the inspiration. So
Wow, the fears that are in our mind are they're not playing out in reality. That's a shocker.
I know, right? That's weird. That's weird. So how do you experience that 2644?
Yeah.
That one is really cool to observe. I have the 26, so
Mm,
I get kind of swept up. That's one reason I think that it's hard. I know I told you last time, like I can't
mm.
follow you all the time. I think it's
Oh.
because that 26, like it'll get upset. I'm like, somebody's
Uh,
better than me.
I do the same thing. Like you hit the wrong post, someone's doing really good, and they're looking good, and you're like, "Fuck, I suck.
Exactly.
Can't follow them anymore." Yeah.
So I just
Right?
kind of observe it now. I'm like, okay, you're funny, but we'll still take a
Uh,
break. So
oh, that's awesome. I wonder if that's a 26 thing because I do the same thing. It's so funny.
yeah, well, because they say
Yeah.
the voice of that one is wanting to be the best, which I
Yeah.
honestly don't resonate with. I've never
Yeah.
been like I've always been kind of athletic and stuff, but I didn't care if somebody beat me. I just wanted to be better than myself. But when it's stuff like this, like with business or human design, or if it seems like somebody knows more than I do, then I get really weird about that.
Mm, yeah.
back to your 2644. I think it's a really cool channel. So have you been able to tap
Yeah.
into that?
Yeah, so I always tell people like you'll get, well, I don't always tell, but the other day I got to this point where I'm like, wow, the every time I look at my design, I just fucking like love it more and more. And I just look at it, I'm like, damn, this is the best design. Like I'm so lucky, like this is perfect, you know. So I think that goes with I think that's for everybody. You know, like when you can get to that point where you look at your design and there's nothing else in the world that you would want to have. Like I wouldn't erase anything, I wouldn't color anything in. Like, wow, I'm really falling in love with that. And so that 4426 to me is like I can really just flow in conversation. I can really adapt to whoever's in front of me and kind of like tailor my pitch or my speech oh, to them, to something that's going to actually resonate deeply with them. So I really see it as like, you know, I gotta be the face. I've got to be the one talking. Like I've got to be the one that shows up. And without knowing what I'm gonna say, I literally can watch it adapt to my surroundings, to whoever's around me. And I used to think that was it's easy for me. You know, I don't do anything. Like I'll do live sometimes and I'll have somebody come on a live with me, a random person on my Instagram, and I'll have a conversation with them, and then someone else will hop on and I'll have a conversation with them. And in the moment I can watch my body language change. I can watch the tone of my voice change, and it's literally mirroring and matching the different people that show up in front of me. So I call it like ranginess. Like you can be very rangy. Like I can talk to, you know, someone that comes over, like a plumber that comes over to fix something. Like I could feel completely at home and resonant with this guy because I've been there. And then, you know, I could go to a very fancy like gala type event and fit in and vibe with, you know, ritzy people. So I really think it's an instinct to be able to kind of like fit in and talk and transmit and sell if I need to anybody, to anybody. And it's really cool to watch it happen.
That is really cool. Do you find that when you have that undefined throat, so do you think
Mhm.
that's why you have a hard time sometimes showing up on video? Like people are saying, "Oh, you should talk more." Is it like does your undefined throat just sometimes not want to talk?
I don't know.
Okay. I was just
That's a
wondering.
good that's a good question. I, it's so funny because I'm learning to say I don't know a lot more. And one thing I don't do is really like pick apart my own chart.
Hmm.
I don't do it. It doesn't help me at all.
Mhm.
Um, and people ask me about my channels and stuff, and it's really like the first time where I'm starting to watch them work. I'm starting to watch my ego come alive. I'm starting to not through study or like contemplating, but literally through being a witness and watching it show up in my life. I'm like, oh fuck, that's that 2551 or that's the 4426. Like I'm
Mhm.
actually being a witness to it. So I don't, you know, I can't look at scenarios and say like, oh, that's my open throat, or
Mhm.
that's my. I could, and sometimes I do because it's interesting, but I don't think that adds any value to my life.
Yeah, no, that totally makes
Really.
sense. That totally makes sense, and I get that. I kinda do the same thing because 'cause I'll tend to, like, overanalyze. I mean, mental
Mhm.
projector, it's all I got, right? So, I can I can kinda get stuck there, so I've been able to start finding this balance and observe, like you said, like, "Oh, hey," like I was talking about the 26, I'm like, "I think that's probably the 26 just getting
Yeah.
kind of competitive there." But I
I
don't know.
think that it's a good question, and I actually have I think the better answer would be it's so much easier for me to know when it's my not self
Mhm.
because oh, why don't I want to speak right now? So you're right. Sometimes I can really feel when my throat stops.
Mm.
Like I could feel when I'm like I'm done talking now. Like it's straining now. Like I'm energetically it's enough. But most of the time, I notice that it's an insecurity coming up, or it's, you know, I don't want to say the truth because of how, you know, I might get some hard emotional things to hear. So I think that's the question I really ask myself is like, is there a not self strategy that's getting in the way of this decision?
Yes, those not self questions have helped me so much. Did they help you in
Right?
the beginning?
That's all I do.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
literally all I tell people. I'm like, you get to know the not self strategies, or then watch your life happen, and you're gonna just laugh because it's always there. It's always there.
It always is. And sometimes I swear I can hear all of them yelling at the same time. They're
Mm.
like competing with each other. Does that happen to you too?
Mm, yeah, I don't know. Probably. Yeah. I'm sure they all when I do, it's so hard for me as I mean, I don't know if it is for you, but for me, like knowing myself through my own design and through my own like introspection, it's
Mhm.
really hard for me. But when I do other people's designs and I'm doing a session with somebody, it's so easy for me to pinpoint the not self strategies for them and to see how they're going to play out with each other. But I really I don't spend much time on my own chart and knowing how they're all going to interact with each other. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that just makes me curious too, because you have the spleen, the heart, and the identity center. So there's some
Hmm.
really body definition that's helping you out. And
Hmm.
perhaps it's because I have no body definition that I get
Mm.
really curious about it, or maybe it's louder for me in some way.
Is it easy for you to come to those conclusions and see everything intellectually?
It is now, like, for the most part, I can really tell when I can just hear it, when one of them or all of them
Mm,
are freaking out about something. Because I used to succumb to them so easily in the past.
mm,
So now I can just laugh, like, that heart's like, "Oh, we gotta do something to prove that we're just as
mm,
good as Travis over there."
mm,
Like, "No, we don't. Travis is different than me. He's doing a
mm.
different thing."
Yeah.
So it helps me calm down, but they are loud. I also tend to, um, give them, like, this voice of, like, a dramatic teenage girl. If they're,
Mm.
like, totally freaking out about stuff, and that helps me take a step back.
Fuck, I don't want to hear what my voice would be. Oof. Nasty voice. I was like brutally hard on myself.
Oh my gosh. I mean, same. It's taken so much self-forgiveness.
Mm,
It's a journey.
mhm.
It's a big journey. Um, but yeah, I was just curious about that undefined throat. I get curious about that too,
Mm.
because that's, very concentrated in what I have. So I don't really understand what it's like to not have a defined throat.
The best experiment I do now, I think with undefined throats, it's like I just need to shut up more and more and more and more when I'm in settings with other people. Like I'm
Mhm.
really seeing like how I still could actually listen more and talk less. And this might be it's a major conditioning force for all of us because we all want to be manifestors, right? So we all tax this open center. I think only 30% I think has it open even. It's pretty rare to have it open. So for me, it's like, oof, I'm really here to be a listener. I'm really here to be able to hold space and to hear the truth. And then, hey, when there's an opportunity or an invitation to ask the right question, um, so many people with open throats, they're so caught up in what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? I got to say something or else I'm going to get bulldozed or I'm going to get run over. So, the open throats, especially in sessions and stuff, like they could talk a lot.
Oh my gosh.
We
Yes.
over talk the people with the definition there. So my homework is always like, is there even more room for me to slow down and more room for me to stay silent and to listen? Um,
Okay.
it's weird.
No, that's good. I always like hearing the experience too for me as an analyst when I'm talking to somebody
Mm,
with a definition or an openness that I
totally.
have to kind of help guide them in that way. And
Yes.
I've noticed that too. If I'm with a client who has an open throat, I'm
They
barely getting
blab.
it.
It's cool at the same time though, right? Like I love watching this shit play out because it's always like it's so spot on. It's so funny to me.
It cracks me up, especially I'll do like some prep work just because I really like to, and then I'll get the client talking, and I'm just in my head, I'm like, this is just perfect. Like your design is just emitting out of your body right now, and it's so great.
I heard a funny audio from Raw once, and he was like talking about the open throat. And he was like, when a client shows up and they have an open throat and they start talking over me, I tell them, "Shut up! I'm doing the reading here. Just shut your mouth." And then he would just like do the reading. I'm like, oh, it's such a manifester, such a manifester thing. But like, I would never tell people to shut up unless there was really openness. I posted once and I was telling myself to shut the fuck up because I could see it in myself, and then people could, take what they want from my experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is such a raw thing to say.
Shut up. Sit there. I'm giving you the reading.
Yeah, I can't imagine. But part of me is like, you paid me for this, right? And the clock is ticking. Like
That's
I don't have all day.
that's the thing. Like it's out of love, like everything that man did, you can really see was out of love for wanting to have a positive impact and change people's lives. Like God,
Yeah.
shit. But gosh, you pay like yeah to have to sit there and let like you're wasting time, like it's oof, that's brutal. Yeah, but not so.
And then I noticed too that the bitterness will start coming up for me. I'm like, you don't
Mm,
want to hear my wisdom?
mm, hmm.
Does it happen to you too? Like when someone's talking over you and you're like, I've got stuff to say. Does the bitterness come through?
It it now that again with that open throat thing that I try to be aware of is like if I'm present and well, yeah, if they're just blabbing, then yeah, you're right. I can get kind of bitter, but I won't let it happen anymore in my sessions. I'll call it out immediately. If I think it's getting in their way, if I think it's causing a problem, maybe in their life or even in our session, like I'll instantly call it out. Um, but I can tell the difference now if it's my open throat wanting to spew wisdom at them,
Uh,
uh, because sometimes in my sessions, like I give too much information sometimes, and they just needed a place to come vent and a place for me to hold space for them to figure this stuff out on their own. So yeah, it is such a balance between my not self and their not self, and yeah, what dynamic is playing out here? Because no matter we have it defined or undefined, we can either talk too much or not talk enough. It goes all the ways.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
so
Yeah. And it is interesting to just watch it play out. My whole like me and both of my kids were all defined throats.
hmm.
So and non-sacrals. So I feel like things are
Hmm.
pretty aligned in
How
the
does
house.
the communication work with you guys? Is it easy?
Yeah,
Or is no one listening?
it's actually really easy, especially as they've gotten older. But I have a degree in communication. And I joke like my parents never talked growing up, and so I joke that I had to go to college and get a degree to learn how to
Mm,
communicate with people.
mm,
And so it's always at the forefront of my mind. And them being boys growing up in this age, I always wanted
mm,
to just help them to grow up in a more healthy way.
mm.
So I might over communicate some things, but I feel like I've created a space where they'll come to me and talk to me, which is what
Great.
I ever wanted. So I feel like we
Right.
do a pretty good job. But my youngest is a manifester, so he gets what he wants like all the time. And my oldest has the 2343, so it's so fun to watch that one play out in real life, especially around my family who's really conservative and they don't understand him most of the time. So I just like nerd out
Fascinating.
all the mechanics of things that are happening.
That's got to be a good recipe for some fun conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. Because that 2343, and it's part of his incarnation cross. So
Uh,
it's and he's a 2/4. He's just
mm,
like casually genius about all this stuff, and
mm.
a lot of people don't really get him. But anyway, um So with you with business and things have been flowing, you were telling me things have been going pretty good.
Mm.
Um, do you, I mean, I know you talked about like once you started being a little more vulnerable, um, invitations started coming a little more. Do you feel like you also kind of leaned more into like your profile or any specific part of your design, or is it just really that surrender, like you were talking about before, like you just stopped trying? What do you
Yeah,
think is the energy shift?
I think it's my spleen,
Mm,
my splenic authority, which says like I'm never going to know why I'll ever make a decision, but I know when to make the decision. And I shared the other day that I'm moving out of my apartment on at the end of this month. So I put
oh
in
yeah.
but I don't have it like I'm going to stay with a friend for a week, and then I'm going to Santa Fe for the Human Design Conference, and then I think I might go travel in Europe. Like I have no solid plan for after I leave this place, but I knew the second I moved in that there was resistance here. I wasn't going to be here long. It didn't feel 100% right. And then like lately, the noise is just getting turned up, and the resistance was, getting even more like visceral, and it was just so obvious I wasn't supposed to be here. But I didn't want to make the decision because I didn't have anything lined up. Where am I going to go? Like all the mental stuff. And then the other day, it was almost like I watch myself pick up my phone, send a text to my landlord, I give my 30-day notice. Like it just happened like that. And I just sent it. I go, it's time. And after I sent that text, it was like, wow, the resistance was instantly gone. And then I started to get a lot more bookings, and like I was just able to kind of get back into my flow. So I think when I don't want to make a decision because the mind's getting in the way and my spleen's telling me, hey, you're not gonna like it here, you're not gonna last here long, like, hey, maybe it's time. Um, like once I finally make that decision, things go back into flow. And again, like I think it's a timing thing. Like maybe I wasn't meant to make that decision until I finally did the other day, you know. But yeah, just trusting in my intuition that whatever isn't feeling aligned, like there's a reason for it, and get rid of it, and let's see what's next, even though I have no idea. So yeah, really trying to be more present, be more surrendered to the moment and to possibilities. And yeah, another thing I think is the third line where I'm meant to bump into things. My body is meant to bump into things. So if I'm not, you know, I wake up every morning with this sense of possibility of what's going to happen to me today. What random person am I going to meet? What random opportunity, what random money is going to fall into my lap? Like there's so much possibility for anything to happen at any second for that third line. Like what are we going to bump into? So I also would, really get stuck in like needing to plan it out or needing it to like I can't see it. If I can't see it in the future, then it's not going to happen, which is so not true for me. So being like a third line splenic person, it's like full fucking surrender to like possibility and change of direction, and not really knowing where I'm going to end up or where I'm going to go. And it feels fucking amazing. It feels so good. Like I'm not scared, which is cool to witness.
Absolutely. Do you think the you of 10 years ago would be super confused right now?
You want to talk about the me of 10 years ago? Holy shit. I was confusion is good, like bitter confusion is a good way to sum me up 10 years ago. I still like I tell people all the time, my mind still is like, dude, what the fuck are you doing human design readings? Like
Yeah.
what are you doing at this bachelorette party? Like you're the like it still doesn't make mental sense to all the conditioning that I've been um, subject to my whole life. It's funny.
Absolutely. There's so much conditioning. And then when you think about business, like you're doing this thing, okay, well, what's your
Mm.
5-year plan?
Yeah.
What kind of, what's your forecast for Q4? Like,
Yeah.
but you're a splenic being. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't do that shit. Maybe one day I will if I get some help, which anything's possible. But me trying to
Yeah.
do that, doesn't do anything for me. Um, I have a hard time managing a schedule,
Right.
as a splenic person. So
Just letting it
just
flow.
well, it's cool to kind of get my mind on board with my life because it still is confused, but I know now how I could literally talk about this shit all day, every day. When I'm in session, when I'm on a podcast, when I'm teaching, I am so lit up and
Hmm.
so excited and so like filled with passion and joy. Like it's obvious to me now this is what I'm supposed to be doing physically. My mind still questions, but it knows that. Um, so it's becoming easier not to let it make decisions anymore. Like the voices are still there, but it's been so easy for me lately to not make any mental decisions, to say like, oh, I hear the voice, I hear the fear, but it's been so good lately. Like, nope, we're still sticking with the body. Like, we're still sticking with the intuition. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's, for people starting out in their experiment, like once you start to get it to work a little bit for you, it just gets easier and easier and easier. I have hard days sometimes still, but not nearly what it was like in the beginning or God, let alone 10 years ago.
I know, 10 years ago. But the
Whew.
frequency of like everything was a lot different 10 years ago, I feel
That's
like.
very true. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
there's no
precious.
opening.
Yeah. Um, okay. And then so you're just talking about the body, and it's reminding me of some of the stuff you talked about on Instagram with the profile. And I like how you really separate it that way with the mind and the body and talking about a three-line body. There's just something about the way you say it that makes different connections for me. And you've talked a lot about that inside of relationships as well, right? And I think that's what you're talking about in the Human Design Conference,
Hmm.
the High Desert. It's the High Desert one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So tell me a little. I mean, I'm not trying to get you to give everything away,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
whatever you feel comfortable sharing about that, because I find this so fascinating, especially as a three-line body trying to get in
Mhm.
relationships. Yeah.
uh Again, like, well, not again, I haven't said this yet, but my personality sun's in gate 63, the gate of doubt, so I'm skeptical as hell. I don't believe anything, but getting this information and then applying it to past experiences, it always matches up and explains it perfectly, so when we look at profile, this is where our bonding strategies come from for intimacy and sexuality, and really that's there for reproductive purposes. So each profile has a strategy and then also has an emotional resonance to it. So the bonding strategy comes from gate 59. So that's, for the, if we just look at our body, this is what we're going to physically be feeling when it comes to how we want to bond with another being. So the third line body is bonds made and broken. Okay, interesting. How the fuck's that going to work in a long-term relationship? And then the emotional resonance is acceptance and rejection. So more of like a feeling, like this physical feeling of how this plays out when when I need to break the bond. Sometimes there's this sense of literal rejection to a partner or to a person in my life. Like it's not me. I'm not consciously doing this because I'm a one. But my body is like it feels like it's physically rejecting somebody. Um, and the one's always looking for security. So
Right.
the one strategy is this like pursuer pursued, like we love to pursue someone or we love the being the one who's being pursued, and then the emotional resonance is weakness and strength, in that. So if you look at the personality, it's more kind of how we like express or communicate our uniqueness to each other, and then the body is really like, hey, let's have sex, let's like reproduce. So if you put the 1 3 together, I'm like, I still laugh because I could watch it play out. I wanted to pursue women.
Um,
The second I caught them, not much later, it would be like, break the bond and let's do it again. And there's not self stuff in there too, of me in my open emotional center and not being able to open up really vulnerably to my partners. But I'm like, wow, that is literally what played out so much in my life, of me wanting someone until I caught them and then feeling this like, nope, my body is ready to break the bond and move on to something else. in like long-term relationships, I think a lot of third lines and a lot of third line bodies, we feel like I need space, and we can feel very guilty about needing space. And so we can come up with some drama or come up with a fake something that's bothering us, or like I used to just like make shit up, like make up problems so that I could have an excuse to take the space I needed, because I was too scared to tell my partner that, hey, I just feel like being alone for a little bit, or I feel like I want to go somewhere by myself. Like I felt very guilty. I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Again, with the open solar plexus, in our in relationship. Um, so I think the third line body is so misunderstood, and people who don't have it and don't understand it can take it as a rejection of like, whoa, why don't you like me anymore? Why don't you love me anymore? And it has nothing to do with that. It's my body wants space. And the thing I think people focus on in the bonds made and broken is actually the bonds broken part. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what sticks out, is like, oh, we have to break the bond. But you don't realize how fucking amazing and um, empowering it is for us to make bonds. We are so good at making new bonds. And even, if I don't see a partner for a week and we come back together, it's so fresh, it's so alive, there's so much spark again. So we need to focus on both the making and the breaking, because there's beauty in both parts of it. But when we remake and rediscover something, it's like, wow, we get to live a whole new relationship, and it could be the same person forever. But we're always going to be constantly changing and yeah, looking for new ways of relating to stay healthy and um, exciting.
I really appreciate that perspective. I think that helped me a lot because that you're right. I focused on that broken part of the
Mm.
bonds. Like, am I just gonna break up with everybody I meet? But then I realized too, like thinking back to my relationship with my kid's dad, like when everything was falling apart, really it was just me saying like all of this stuff that we've created, it's not really working. So we need to leave that and we need to recreate something new. And I see that too, where it's not necessarily like I want to leave the relationship. It's just it's a way of enforcing it and making it stronger. And so that kind of helped me too. Like I'm not just gonna leave people. We're gonna make a really good relationship.
I think a lock said it, of like 1-3s are with a partner for 20 years and they're still wondering if it's got the legs to go the distance. you know, it's just like, wow, I can really resonate with that. We're just like, oh, because we're just built to test it. We're built to test the relationship. We're not built to be the networker or the opportunist, or, we're really here to like, let's test this thing
Yeah,
and make sure.
yeah, for sure. Well, and he's a 2-4 generator with a completely open solar plexus, so he's like,
Mm.
"Let's just chill and have fun." Like, "But these things are annoying." So it's just interesting unpacking all of that.
I mean, that I think that's going to be my area of real expertise as the further I go along my journey, because I just love looking at relationships and bonding and our sexuality, having an open sacral, open solar plexus. Um,
Mhm.
it's fascinating to me to watch uh, the pure dysfunction play out in my relationships, and so many relationships. There's so much healing when you become aware of, hey, we got different strategies um,
Right,
to be intimate with each other.
right. Do you think moving forward, like for you personally, if you were to get in a committed relationship with someone, do you feel like they would have to be knowledgeable of their human design? Have
I have no idea.
yeah.
I wait for an invitation, or I see an opportunity, and you know, I'm so I'm so open to someone showing up in my life,
Mhm.
and what they need to look like or be like is none of my business, except
Oh,
for my intuition
Yeah.
in the moment.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
I mean, that's really what fucks people is this list.
Well, yeah, because we're told like the manifesting gurus, they're like, okay, get real specific on your
Yeah.
list and what you want, and meditate on that every day.
If people think that's like, I just laugh. Like, do people really buy into that? Because I'm just like, wait, I want a
Yes.
red car with this. I'm just like, how do you know you want that? You know, like I don't know. I might just be. And the third line is also the natural pessimist. So I just like I love laughing at shit that doesn't make sense to me. I'm just like, wait a second. If you're into human design, if you're in your experiment, the more I'm in my experiment, the more I realize I have no fucking idea what's going to make me happy. I have
Mm,
no clue uh, who's going to be, um, or I have really no clue like what is going to be like the best sex. Like when I look at somebody, I'm like, oh, she's really hot. Oh wait, I don't want to talk to you. Oh, that's a bummer. Or like I'm just like so much more open to random encounters and witnessing things that come in that I say yes to, and then being surprised by how amazing it is.
I love that. I love that. That seems like such splenic wisdom to me, though.
Probably.
That's what I'm like, must be nice. But I think it's really great because again, I know we all have the whole chart. I'm curious about your perspective of this because I know
Yeah.
we talk a lot about our definitions, like, oh, like you have the spleen, I don't have the spleen. Well, I mean, I have
Hmm.
a spleen, it's just not
Hmm.
consistent, you know,
Hmm.
it's not talking to me the same way every day.
Hmm.
So it's like we have it all, we just have the consistency in our definition.
Hmm.
Do you relate to that?
Oh yeah. I'm I've been in an emotional transit for the last like year and a half now with the 35, 36 hooked up.
Yeah, that's right. How is that going for you?
I don't know.
Have you, because Janelle has that too, and she said the
She,
same thing. She's like, I
she,
guess it's there, like
I'm having a wild time. Like emotions, I'm learning so much about emotions. Like it's hard for me to trust decisions sometimes now. I'm like, oh, wait, I really thought that was going to be great, and now I'm feeling totally different. Like I'm actually being able to watch that the wave kind of happen in me. Um, and I think that's probably one of what Ra always said, like you can know your design, but we're not living in a vacuum. Like the second you
right.
leave your house, you're connecting with things are hooking up, and like there's so much going on in interaction that we don't know how it's personally affecting our design or what's getting turned on and what's getting turned off. So in relationship, it's like how could we define a relationship as like a one size fits all thing? If you really believe two people are completely unique, then any combination of two people getting in relationship with each other, it's going to be a completely unique relationship. Like it's going to be
Yeah.
like there's going to be so much going on that's different from anybody else. Um, so yeah, like if I didn't get to taste that sacral, we'd be dead, right? Like that's like
Yeah.
like we're not born celibate as projectors and manifestors, like I love to play with that with the sacral energy. So yeah,
Yeah.
we totally all get to feel it all, and I think that is a misconception when I first came in. It was like I don't have this or I don't have that, and it's like no 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 no, I just can't trust it. I'm not meant to make emotional decisions, but fuck, I'm super sensitive. I feel things. I can amp up emotions.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then when there's a transit that's so long standing, like this
Mm,
one, 35, 36, or really just the 36,
yeah.
it's like I'm trying to remember where I heard this one from, but after a certain amount of time, it really it really impacts you in a deeper way. Like you can
Mm.
kind of consider it part of your design for that time because I mean a year and a half, that's the significant time to have that connected.
Yeah, I think it's going to be even longer than that, and then it goes back retrograde and happens for a little bit longer. So I'm going to be
Oh yeah.
interested when it leaves to see what it feels like if I can feel it.
Yes, that'll
Yeah,
be fun to notice.
yeah.
There's yeah, do you follow the transits very closely?
I'll look at if I'm feeling crazy for like an extended period of time, I'll look up the transits and take a look and see what's there.
Mhm.
Typically, it's like all my centers are defined.
Right. And
You
you're like,
know,
"Oh,
I'm like, oh, okay, I can feel nuts. That's fine. Or I have like insane amounts of energy for some reason. I went through a really cool transit where I have gates in all three streams of our sexuality and relationship through the solar plexus. I got
mhm,
the 55, I have the 37 and the 19, and then I have the 36. And
mhm,
so one like within a 1 month period, I had specific each different stream hooked up for like a solid couple of days each. And I got to actually feel like, oh my God, when the 49 hooked up to my 19, I was like, I really want a relationship. Like I really want to be with someone long term. Like I really was feeling needy and feeling like, ah, I want to be wanted, you know. And then once it's gone, I was like, oof, oof, good thing I didn't like ask anybody out because now I don't want that anymore, you know. And then I felt like the romance, and like all of the sudden I was like listening to songs on repeat, you know, and like, whoa, I never do that, you know. I typically like silence, like I drive around in silence, like I'm not much of a music person, but more lately with my emotional system hooked up, it's like, wow, music is speaking to me in such a different way, and I had to listen to this song like over and over and over again. And then the 35, 36, it's just like, yeah, I've been having adventures, like a lot of adventures, and it's not over yet. So yeah.
yeah, that channel feels very much like a FOMO energy to me, like, it just really wants to live life and experience things and get in there. Is that kinda what you've been feeling?
It feels very ungrounded, not in a bad way, but like it's not meant. Yeah, it's like let's go try some stuff out.
Yeah,
To me, it's like it's almost like it kind of goes with the third line in a way. It
that's what I was
seems
saying,
like
like, yeah, it would be so interesting to have that plus a third line, like, you're just like, "Let's go do things."
yeah, yeah. Well, I've been doing things and things that like I was studying with a lock and he told me because I asked him, I was like, what am I supposed to do with this fucking transit that's coming, you know? And he didn't give me any answer, which I'm so grateful for. But he told me, he's like, he goes, whatever happens, just make sure you keep your sense of humor. I was like, that's probably the best advice anyone's ever given me about anything.
That
Uh,
is so
I just
great.
like that. I'll never forget that because it still sticks with me. Yeah.
That seems like a very Alok thing to say.
Mhm.
I've never communicated with him, I just
Mhm.
know his stuff from social media and YouTube. That just seems his vibe. Well, how was what was that like studying with him? He seems like a wealth of information.
He's so I love that he's kind of like next in line to Raw
Mhm.
because of how different their designs are. Like they're both manifestors, but we have the splenic ego manifester, and then we have a lock is so emotional.
Mm.
And it's such a cool, sometimes I'll listen to courses and I'll listen to Ra's course first, and then I'll listen to a lock's same exact course next. And I'll get so much valuable information from both of them. What's it like through an emotional lens versus what's it like through, like I obviously resonate to Ra more because I'm a splenic ego projector. And so there's
Right.
just that dryness there. But then sitting through and gaining that experience of what it feels like, you know, to be an emotional being who's been doing it for as long as Alok's been doing it. It's such a treat. And I actually did my LYD guide training with Alok. And then afterwards, I really wanted to do the sexuality and relationships and caring and all that. And so I actually did it just me and him.
Oh,
uh,
wow.
he said, "Hey, I told you I would do this, and you know, I was the only person out of that small group that wanted to take it at that time. So I got some really cool one-on-one time with him, which was terrifying for me. You know, he's so impactful, and you never know what his mood is going to be, and you know, it was I was nervous a lot of the time, but he's such a sweet man. Like deep down, he's so sweet and so helpful and caring, and he really took care of me and answered all my questions, and we had some great conversations.
Wow,
I love him. Yeah.
that's so cool. I don't think I realized you studied with him like that.
Mhm. Yeah, it was special. It was a special experience. Yeah.
So the relational aspect really has been a focus for you for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. When I started my spiritual journey, that's where I went kind of straight away, was into sexuality. I
Mhm.
had one of my closest friends, Amy Batuski. She's a sex and relationship coach, and she mainly works with women now. But she was in this community at the time, where they practiced orgasmic meditation.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah, that's my thought exactly. It took me about 2 years to get the courage to come to one of these workshops and see what it was all about. So it's I'm not going to get into too much detail. I'm going to share a lot about this at the conference this
Okay.
year, because it's so tied into human design. But it was really all about like diving into your desires, you know, especially for women. So their main thing was like men are kind of taught to lead with their desires and withhold their sensitivity and their feelings. And women are really taught to lead with their feelings and their sensitivity, but withhold their deep desires. And so when you get together, it's like a mismatch, you know, because again, we all have it all. So being around these women who are like encouraged and supported and letting out these like wild desires that they have when it comes to sexuality, relationships, or whatever. And then being a man and opening up to my sensitivity and my feelings and sharing authentically when I'm scared or, you know, feeling vulnerable. So I like it changed my whole world around relating and sexuality. And then I thought, like, holy shit, if our society got sex so wrong, then we got everything wrong.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
this is everybody is inclined towards their sexuality. It's the law of being human. So that just like instantly shattered this reality of what I thought, uh, or shattered the rules, and the conditioning that I was meant or that I was told to believe, and that was kind of like what really put me on this path. And um, so I really think like how can you tell a generator to respond if they haven't had an orgasm in a year?
Mm.
You know, how can you tell a generator to respond if they're experiencing sexual trauma that they haven't dealt with? You know, there's so much about orgasm and our sexuality that lives in that sacral center, and the majority are generators. So if that's not taken care of, if you're not tapped into that energy or that desire or whatever that turns you on, oh, are you really at full capacity to unleash that energy to, you know, to live a life that's going to be satisfying? Because if your sex isn't satisfying, you know, it just becomes a pressure release or a way that you get rid of the frustrated sacral energy, which isn't great sex to have, you know. So, you know, I think, and it might be my one threeness and my openness, but like I'm like, let's start there.
Yeah.
Like if you heal those wounds and that conditioning, it will guaranteed translate and transmute to every other area of your life, whether it's business, you know, money, you know, living situations, any relationship. I've really saw once I fixed that, or not fixed it, but once I started to explore it and heal that part of me, my whole life changed.
That's really beautiful. And that's something I appreciate about watching you too, is like how you really embrace the masculine and the feminine in life and just really getting into that experience of desire and there's just a lot of information there, like you said. What if we
It's
did it
perfect.
Yeah.
It's the balance. It's the yin and the yang. It's the that symbol, you know. It's like it's perfectly designed. I mean, we just have to get out of our own way.
Yeah. Well, and there's like purity culture. I grew up in the church, right? So it's like
Mm,
wait till you get married.
mm,
And then like that was the weirdest thing for me because we did wait. And then it like all of a sudden I was supposed to be this sexual
mm,
being when I had been
mm,
repressing it this whole time.
mm.
And there was a lot happening there. So like just the messages we send in this society are so weird.
It's fucked
So
up.
it really is. I'm glad you're doing some work for healing around that area. It sounds like it's much needed. And honestly, this just hit me too, like to have a man like you to show up in this really nurturing and caring way. Like I don't feel threatened by you talking about this.
Mm,
And that alone is so healing.
mm,
So thank you for doing that.
thank you. I really feel that, and I know that's part of my purpose is to be a voice and to be able to listen to the feminine and you know hold a safe space where people aren't threatened by my energy. You know, people feel safe around me. I allow them to be who they are, and yeah, I don't know why it's part of my purpose.
Well, it's a beautiful part, very healing part. I love it. When is the human design, the High Desert Human Design Conference, in case anybody's listening
Yeah,
and has on it?
September 12th through the 18th.
That's right.
And you can buy a remote access pass if you can't make it to Santa Fe, and you can watch all the lectures and speakers. And Jonah really does an absolutely amazing job at like coordinating this whole thing and setting up. Like, I don't know how they do it, you know. They really do a good job making sure that everything's running and people have access to as much as they possibly can. So it's awesome.
Did you go last year?
I did,
Okay.
yeah,
I didn't get to go, but I was watching, like, everybody I know, I was
uh,
watching the stories.
yeah.
It seemed like a really cool time.
I'm gonna try to share a lot more this time and hop on Instagram a lot more and do some behind the scenes stuff and what's going on because God, it's just a conference of a bunch of fucking weirdos, you
Yeah.
know? Like we're all so weird, we're all so like you know, supportive and like this is me and you know, I'm not hiding anything and yeah, there's not self stuff that shows up and ego things and it's just like to me it's just like a cool space for like whatever happens, like everybody's gonna be in acceptance, um, or at least like in understanding of what's playing out. So you can really just kind of go and then the level of information too. Like there's some amazing speakers who have some really cool perspectives, and they did old slideshow of Raw in the early days last time. Someone had all these photos, and I don't know. I nerd out on this stuff all day, every day. So to me, it's very special.
Yeah. It's really cool. I'm curious about it, but I don't feel an urge to go. Like, I feel a
Yeah,
little overwhelmed thinking about going,
yeah.
but then I'd also like, if somebody was like, "Hey, come with me," maybe I'd figure it out. But
Mm.
are you going to the other one? There's another one happening in Utah with Brayton.
Nope.
I think it's just, like, the week before or something, so
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff happening in the human design space these days.
Yeah. I got a personal invite to High Desert, so that felt really good
Oh,
from
yes.
Jonah. Yeah. I'll be speaking too, so that feels yeah,
Yes.
feels good.
Yes, I bet that does. That feels really good. Well, I will definitely be watching everybody's stories. I'm very curious about what
Yeah.
comes out of
Yeah.
it. It'll be fun.
Uh,
And also, I think Jessie told me last time it was really fascinating for her to watch. Like people would just kind of naturally end up in these pentas,
uh-huh.
and then they'd find out it was like this perfect penta, but it wasn't organized. It just
Uh,
happened.
mhm.
I think that's really fascinating too.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in a penta the whole time for sure. I don't think we ever did our penta chart though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We might have been six. I can't remember. Yeah. it's just cool to like experiment, that's what it is. That's what it feels like to me, as a giant fucking experiment, like in Aura.
Absolutely.
Get
Yes.
messy.
Yes. I
Yeah.
think I don't know what I would do because I don't have anybody in real life that'll nerd out on human design with me. All my HD friends are online like this. So if I was in Aura with a whole bunch of human design people,
Yeah.
I think I'd get too excited.
You wouldn't. You would fit right in.
You're like, no, it'd be perfect.
You would fit right in. Yeah.
It would be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for sharing this time and all of this amazing information. Like, I just really appreciate your frequency and your message. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you again for the opportunity. When we did Hot Topics, I had such a connection with you, and I really appreciate what you do. And I there isn't much stuff out there for mental projectors. That's some of the questions I get the most of online is like, hey, give me some resources. And so to see what you're doing, I think it's going to be awesome, and so helpful. So I'll be sending a lot of people your way. And yeah, cool to be on this fractal together. Who knows what or why or how,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. We'll see where it goes, where the three
yeah.
line takes us.
Yeah.
But I know it helps me so much to observe you and your experiment and kind of see that 1-3 come through. It like brings realizations to me and it helps me in a lot of ways. So thank you. And
Likewise.
thank you for
Thank
that
you.
recognition. I'm excited to help more with mental projectors. It's
Yeah.
feeling like where I'm meant to go.
Mm, beautiful.
Well,
Awesome.
until next time.
Thank you.